Good morning. Good morning, and thank you. Sorry to stop all our networking going on this morning. It's a beautiful day here in Southwest Florida. And welcome to the VCB TDC meeting. It's August 11th, 2022. You could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Have the staff do a roll call, please. Here.
Here.
Pamela Cronin. Tony Laffey.
Here.
Jay Johnson.
Here.
Robert Wells.
Here.
Bill Wachulis.
Good morning.
Brian Kramer.
Here.
Councilman Larry Fiesel.
Here.
Mayor Holly Smith. Councilwoman Gloria Tate. Councilman Mike Gibson. And Councilman Jim Aderholt are excused. We do have a quorum.
Great, thank you. I think some of our members are at the League of Cities conferences this week, so that's where we have missing some people. And welcome, County Manager Roger DeJarlais. Thank you, sir. It's a little special this morning between Roger here and Tamara and Andrea, so it's a great group here. I'd like to have a motion to move the approval of the June 9th, 2022 TDC minutes.
So moved. I'll second.
Motion. We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Come back to the board. Any? Oh, yes. On the minutes?
Public comment.
Oh, this was for the minutes only, though. Okay, yeah. We'll have a public comment. This is for the minutes. We'll come back to the board. Any objection? No objection. Motion carries. Okay, sorry, sir. Now you can come up. Now we'll have public comment this time. Come to the podium and state your name, please.
Good morning. I'm Andrew Kurtz. I'm the president and CEO of the Gulf Coast Symphony. I just want to take a moment to thank the TDC for their support of the local arts and culture communities in Lee County. The Gulf Coast Symphony is the second largest performing arts organization in Lee County, with thousands of visitors and residents alike visiting us. In January 2021, we opened our Music and Arts Community Center, or the MAC as we call it, which includes a 300-seat theater located on Daniels Parkway, just a mile from I-75. It's a performance and education space. Between the MAC and the Barbara B. Mann Performing Arts Hall, we now offer nearly 100 performances in diverse genre of music, from pop, symphony, chamber music, music theater, jazz, singer-songwriters, and more. I just want to again thank you for your support and invite each of you to come to the MAC at some point this year and see our new space. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Next speaker.
Chairman, my name is Allison Charney-Hussey. I'm the Executive Director of CROW, the Clinic for the Rehabilitation of Wildlife on Sanibel. And I would like to echo the comments of the prior speaker in thanking the TDC for their support of CROW over the past several years. We, as the only wildlife animal hospital in Lee County, service not only the island of Sanibel and Captiva, but 80% of our patients come from off island, and many of our visitors come to CROW, learn about CROW through the Visitor Education Center and the funding we receive from the TDC, become members and help support our cause to put wildlife back into our wonderful community, which then draws more folks back to Lee County. So again, thank you for your support through these many years. We could not do what we do without you all.
Great. Thank you. Come on up.
Good morning. I'm Beth Oliver, Vice President and Director of Sales and Marketing with Offshore Sailing School. And I wanted to share some good news that we've received in the last month. Our President and CEO, Doris Colgate, is going to be inducted into the National Sailing Hall of Fame in November. She joins her husband, Steve Colgate, who was inducted in 2015. They're one of the only couples in the sailing industry to be recognized as individuals. So we're quite proud of that. And when you see Doris around town, tell her congratulations. She'll be in Newport and inducted into the class of 2022 in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment at this time? Okay, we'll move on to municipalities to be heard from the audience. Any municipalities? Councilwoman Nelson.
Hi, everyone. Excuse me, Councilmember Jennifer Nelson, City of Cape Coral, District 4. I'm here on behalf of Gloria Tate, who had another engagement this morning, and I did not go to the League of Cities so I could stick around and hang out with you guys. So thank you for having me. I wanted to give a quick update on municipalities, and I apologize, I'm still recovering from retina detachment, so I'm going to read like this. Our Go Bond progress continues at 7 of our new and existing neighborhood parks that are currently under construction. Groundbreaking for Yellow Fever Creek Preserve was held in late June. Ribbon cutting for a new and improved Gufrida Park will take place in September. Improvements include the addition of a multi-use path, sidewalk, playground, shade structure, and pickleball courts. We have lots of special events coming up, some unique, some of our first-time events. My personal favorite is a Mom Prom, which is happening on September 17th at the Cape Coral Yacht Club. We also had our annual Red, White, and Boom event on July 4th, which was insanely hot and attracted nearly 40,000 people. It was a beautiful fireworks show. Our team did a great job. We also are getting ready to kick off Concert in the Park at Four Freedoms Park on Saturday, October 1st. And our first bike night will actually be before this group meets again on Saturday, October 8th, I believe. In addition, we have several old favorites like our Veterans Day Parade coming up and our holiday boat along. We have Cape Music and Arts Fusion event on Saturday, November 12th, and a reindeer run and 5K on December the 10th. And we just wanted to say thank you to the TDC for your support. We know that you all have awarded us some grant money for some improvements to our park, in addition to our potential, some very small shoreline erosion project that we will be having at the Yacht Club Beach. Thank y'all so much.
Great, thank you. Any other cities to be heard? Okay. We'll come back to the council. Report of Tamara.
All right, good morning. It's hard to believe we're almost in the middle of August already. We did not meet with you in July, so I'm going to share both the May and June bed tax report. May bed tax came in at 4.45 million, down slightly, down 1.6% from 2021, but a very significant increase over 19, of course. Same with June, $4.67 million, down 3.3%, but a significant increase over June of 19. For the year to date, we're at 56 million, almost 2 million, up 31% over the same point in the fiscal year last year. So we have 3 months of collections left. So there's no doubt in my mind that we will beat last year's number and have another record-breaking year this year. In terms of occupancy, this is the month of May. Occupancy was down. ADR and RevPAR were both up. And for June, occupancy was down, ADR was up, but RevPAR was down. Again, if you compared those to 19 numbers, those are all improvements over 19, but down a bit over our pent-up demand summer of 21. In terms of key data dashboard, this is the vacation rental performance. You see a very similar situation, a decrease in occupancy for May, impacting RevPAR. And for June, also a decrease in occupancy and a negative on the RevPAR for June. Traffic at the airport, down 11% for May and 21% for June. And but like us, year to date, they are seeing an increase, just over 6.4 million passengers. This is calendar year to date, so on the positive there. I have 2 new staff members that I have the pleasure of introducing to you today. I'm going to lead with our market intelligence analyst. Her name is Dr. Roberta Azzori, and Roberta, maybe you can stand up for those who are here. I'll read a little bit about her. She will be providing strategic analysis and insight regarding our Lee County tourism performance. We've got a number of projects she's working on, but this analysis will guide our budget spend and business decisions, and also the way we communicate with the public. Roberta earned her PhD in hospitality management from the University of Central Florida's Rosen College of Hospitality Management, and prior to joining the VCB, she was a professor of hospitality and tourism management for 10 years. She has also consulted for several hospitality companies, governmental entities, and nonprofit organizations, and has spoken at numerous international conferences throughout the world. She is a native of Sardinia, which is an island off the coast of Italy. She speaks Italian, Spanish, and English fluently, and we are super excited to have Roberta on our team. So please welcome Roberta. I also get to introduce to you Brielle Benzing, who is our newest marketing manager. Brielle, also here behind me, is in this role. She will help us coordinate at various events, including the Tourism Annual Meeting, our Lee County Days with the spring training teams, as well as industry and community education initiatives. She will also work on our influencer program, consumer and industry websites, integrated media placement, and digital content creation. Brielle comes to us most recently having worked at United Way of Lee, Hendry, and Glades counties, managing their Gifts in Kind program. Before that, she served as the marketing and communications manager for the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce. In 2013, she moved to Lee County to join Florida Repertory Theater as an intern and worked her way into a leadership role as their director of marketing. We are really happy to have her. She is a graduate of High Point University with a Bachelor of Science degree in marketing with a minor in theater, and she and her husband, Daniel, and their 10-month-old son live in Cape Coral. So welcome, Brielle.
Congratulations, Tamara. Great talent there.
I know everybody says they're having a hard time finding great talent, and I have to tell you, we're finding really great talent. I think feel very lucky to have that happening during this time, because I know it is a little bit of a challenge. But we have a couple of more positions that we're filling this month. So next month when we meet, I'll share a couple of other positions with you. But we are really excited to have these new staffers. Just really great talent on our team. Now I would like to ask Jill Vance to come up and give us the, I'm sorry, I have one other exciting announcement. Bill, I know you're probably thrilled with this. We have Gary LaVox as our headliner for Island Hopper Songwriter Fest. Buy your tickets now is my advice to those listening on over the streaming service. Gary LaVox was previously the lead singer with Rascal Flatts, and we're excited to have him on September 25th at the Pink Shell. So, super news for that. And now, Jill will give you the sales report.
Good morning, Council. I'm Jill Vance, Director of Sales, and I am happy to announce that as of the end of June, we have attained 4 out of our 7 sales goals for the fiscal year. The 2 goals that we are behind pace in are the number of FAM attendees to the destination. We have been successful conducting individual site tours for meeting planners and travel advisors, but they continue to be hesitant to take part in a group FAM, which is why our numbers are lower. Also, wedding leads sent are behind pace by quite a bit. We still need to keep in mind that we are rolling over some very high numbers from the height of the pandemic when everybody seemed to want to get married. But compared to the same time in 2019 before COVID, we are only 28 leads behind pace. And I am confident that wedding leads will be increasing, and you'll see why in just a moment. Group media, in the interest of time, I just want to highlight a few of these from last quarter. For Meetings Media, we were the sponsored destination in Meetings Today e-handbook, which included a full-page ad and 2 pages of advertorial. The subject of the e-handbook was Meetings Tech Update, and our article received over 600 page views, which was almost double the benchmark. For Travel Trade, in April, we received a full-page advertorial in Travel Weekly's digital guide on summer escapes. And this was launched in conjunction with the destination education that Jennifer conducted on their live webinar. Over 800 travel advisors registered for the webinar, and the digital guide received almost 4,000 page views. And now for Weddings Media. We now own over 130 breathtaking images and hours of video B-roll, thanks to an amazing package with bridal guide that included a fashion editorial photo shoot. And I want to give a big thank you to our partners who helped host the shoot. For the September-October issue, which was just released, and I believe Fran is circulating this right now, we are on the front cover with 8 editorial pages, which features the photos from Cassia Bell and Edison and Ford. And then the November-December issue, which will be released on September 20th, will feature another front cover with 8 editorial pages, and photos of the Pink Shell and the Westin will be in that issue. So needless to say, I'm certain this will generate many more wedding leads. All right, sales activities for last quarter. On the top, is Erin with Tamara Parker from the Marriott Sanibel Harbor at the Helms-Briscoe Annual Business Conference. For those of you who don't know, Helms-Briscoe is our top producing third-party meeting planner. This was a 2-day reverse trade show with over 1,200 attendees. And we also were able to geofence this show and deliver display ads to the attendees during the conference and for 1 month following the conference. The click-through rate on the desktop banner ad was 3 times higher than the benchmark. And so far, RFPs totaling almost 2,400 room nights have already been sent to our hotel partners as a direct result of this show. Travel trade activities for last quarter, I just want to highlight one. On the top is Jennifer with some of our industry partners at the West Coast Florida Travel Agency Sales Mission, where they formed 3 teams and made sales calls to 40 travel agencies and AAA offices from Port Charlotte to Spring Hill. Some upcoming activities for the domestic sales team for August, I just want to point out one. Even as we speak, Jerry and Betsy are at the Connect trade show. Each took a market, 1 corporate, 1 association, and they are meeting with meeting planners. And this show also is in conjunction with our very own Joan Barkowski making the list of the Connect BizBash 40 Under 40, which is a prestigious list that highlights the top young professionals in the events industry. So we're very proud of Joan. And for September, I just want to highlight that Jennifer will be attending the Delta Vacations University Trade Show. Delta Vacations is the official vacation provider for Delta Airlines, and over 2,000 of their highest producing travel advisors will be attending the education events along with this very popular trade show. This is a great place for us to showcase everything that is new and exciting in the destination. For international, Charm Evans is traveling, so I will update you on the international activities on her behalf. In June, our TDC Chair, Commissioner Pendergrass, and some VCB staff attended the 53rd Annual IPW in Orlando. We had 124 appointments with international travel trade, of whom expressed a strong interest in returning to the United States, especially Florida. Some other takeaways from the show were that they were seeing a large increase in the demand for vacation rentals. Also, receptive operators are very eager to increase their portfolio of accommodations in Lee County. And although Europeans are experiencing sticker shock regarding Florida beach holidays, they expect 2023 to be a strong year. Generational family travel is a big trend right now, and Brazil is displaying interest in exploring areas in Florida other than the big cities like Miami and Orlando. Also in June, we welcomed our VCB contractors from Germany, Canada, and the UK for a destination training FAM. Some areas that were visited were Bonita Springs, Estero, Cape Coral, Matlacha, and Bokeelia. And finally, the Lee County VCB was ranked 7 of the 10 top North American tourism boards at the Baxter Media Awards in Canada. Some upcoming activities for the global sales team, and I just want to point out one in September. We will participate in Visit Florida's Germany sales mission, taking place across 4 cities where we will conduct destination educations to about 40 travel trade representatives in each city. Are there any questions before I turn it over to Simone Bear, who will update you on our visitor services activities? Yes.
Congratulations on the Brazil thing. I think I started working on that prior to COVID, and then that kind of fell apart. So that's great news that it's successful.
Great, thank you.
Starting to come together. All right, please welcome Simone Bear.
Good morning, Council. I'm very happy to be here with you this morning to report on the third quarter for visitor services. During that time period, our volunteers assisted 86,649 visitors. They worked 6,070 volunteer hours at a value of $181,796. Gave out 12,300 visitor guides and assisted with 6 special projects. The top requests during that time period in terms of accommodation, they're all airport properties, was the Drury Inn, Best Western, and Home 2 Suites. For attractions, aside from the beaches, the top ones were Ding Darling, Edison and Fort Winter Estates, and Lovers Key State Park. Top activities were shelling, canoeing, and shopping. Some of the highlights for community and partner support during the third quarter was volunteers assisting with the Fine Mark Pro Tennis at Bonita Bay, providing registration assistance for the first responder games at Crown Plaza. 27 out of 120 volunteers now assist inside U.S. Customs for the Cuba Azul twice weekly flights from Havana. This is in addition to the 3 weekly flights Eurowings Discover comes in from Frankfurt. They also greeted the Breeze inaugural flights from Charleston and Vegas. And I just want to highlight briefly our volunteers who provide multilingual customer service assistance. This is inside U.S. Customs, as well as our international booth at RSW. And we recently came across this Facebook post that appeared in a German Florida fan page where the visitors had never been to Florida before they arrived at RSW for the very first time, and were incredibly surprised and pleased to be greeted by German-speaking volunteers who not only helped them get through customs, but then provided them with excellent information on what to see and do while they're here on vacation, and essentially planned their entire vacation for them. We also just received a really lovely note from a customs officer who was extremely grateful for our volunteers' assistance inside customs. Just recently, a flight of 269 passengers came in from Frankfurt, and unfortunately, only one customs officer was available to process all of them, which took well over 2 hours, and our volunteers entertained people while they were in line, talked to them, made sure everybody was organized. So by the time each person came up to that one officer handling the entire flight, everybody was still in good spirits. So they were very appreciative of our volunteers, which of course we are too. Celebrated National Seashell Day on June 21st. Visitor services staff dressed up as a manatee and a dolphin, and our volunteers got to hand out shell necklaces to all arriving passengers that day. And we do know how to have fun. During the third quarter, our volunteers were busy attending various destination adjacent training sessions. We're at the Edison and Fort Winter Estates, Players Circle Theater, Twin Waters Island Resort, as well as the Luminary. And a big thank you to our industry partners for hosting our volunteers. They thoroughly enjoy it, and they always learn a lot about you. Looking ahead, we're very excited to be hosting the 22nd Annual Elaine McLaughlin Outstanding Hospitality Service Awards, the E-Awards, on September 8th, and sincerely hope that all of you will be able to join us. We do have 552 nominees this year, which we have the honor of recognizing for providing exceptional customer service and going above and beyond. Also, our volunteers actually just yesterday attended were in Cape Coral and got to visit Sunsplash as well as the Fairfield Inn and learn about both. Are there any questions for me before I hand it over to Ray Saraceno, who will give you the communications
Any questions?
report.
I have a comment too. Tamara, did you want to say something?
Well, I'll let you go first, sir.
So thank you for bringing this up, and thank you for recognizing the volunteers and for the visitors. Myself, Ben, and Carol, and Brian a few weeks ago, I traveled to Frankfurt for a Eurowings meeting. And let me tell you something, the difference, I'm sure some people have been here flying international. Picture me, Brian, and Carol, and Ben running through the Frankfurt airport for 3 hours, trying to find our gate. We came across, I think, how many dozens of employees that either A, couldn't speak any type of language with us, communicate with us, and had no idea where the airport information was. We could find no one providing services for us. It was just a total disaster. We get off the plane here at RSW, it was night and day. We get off the plane. Before you even got through customs, you saw 3 to 4 of the pink shirts, the volunteers. They were greeting you, they're smiling. And you could just see the difference between the people on the plane when they got on the plane in Frankfurt compared to here, our airport. And now you will know why people come here. What a difference of a destination. What a different experience it is to leave Frankfurt and then come here, and we have so much more. So within 3 minutes, we had people, probably saw 7 employees that obviously could provide assistance. They were helping people out as they got off the plane, answering questions from where to go as far as customs or rental cars or what it was. So again, Ben, thank you for having out there. Thank you for all the volunteers, because it does make a difference, though, when you travel.
And people will always remember that, you know.
Yes.
And just to add to that, I think the customs staff so much appreciates what the volunteers do. Yesterday, they had a little celebration with them, had them in we'll call it a potluck. I guess that's the right thing, but they literally had all the volunteers who work in customs in to say thank you to them. So just that relationship, it affects the visitor, but it also affects our local customs agents. They're grateful for the service that's being provided. Simone, as always, top-notch job out there, and thank you for all they do. They're amazing. They are. All right, with that, we'll welcome up Ray Saraceno. Ray's going to give you the communications update.
Hey, good morning to you. First off, I'd just like to give a little shout out to my communications team, Jackie Parker, Miriam Dotson, and Annie Banyan, who couldn't be here today. Very hard workers, and they've been carrying a lot of the load, so I'm grateful to kind of walk into something that was so well-greased, well-oiled machine. So we'll just start off with our impressions. Number of impressions are looking really good. We're almost at about 2 billion, which is up 23% from the previous quarter. And talking about coverage, we've had a great few months of coverage, and it continues to look better and better. Particularly pleased with June 21st, which was National Seashell Day. Fox Weather interviewed Dr. Jose Leal from the National Shell Museum, and he just hit it out of the park. He did a great live shot, a long one, a couple minutes, and so much so that they sent a reporter out to Sanibel to cover it for the rest of the day. So they actually had a team out there. They did 5 hits throughout the day and a long package, and I think the links to those are in your package. So local coverage remains strong, doing well as far as our PCB columns. They're in regularly, and they've been very generous with space and with artwork and on the pages, so we greatly appreciate that. So the destination continues to earn rave reviews in publications throughout the world, really. One particular one we're very proud of is the Travel and Leisure, which carries a huge audience worldwide and included us in their list of 12 best tropical vacations, which is just a huge shout out, great mention. So again, shout out to the partners we work with, which is everybody. We really appreciate the cooperation we have and the assistance we have greeting journalists and having them here with us. Couldn't do it without you. And we've had a couple good press trips, particularly during that period. We had Lauren Jarvis from the UK, who she's a freelancer in UK, but very well read, huge reporting. And that was part of a partnership with Visit Florida, which we greatly appreciate. They had her down here, and we wouldn't have known about it without them getting involved. So thank you for that. So conferences, again, exciting times, especially coming on the heels of COVID, which I'll stop talking about. But travel restrictions, I think once they were loosened, allowed us to attend a number of events throughout the region. And bottom line for us is we're pushing to get more coverage. So everyone we talk to, every journalist we discuss this with, and talk about the destination is a good opportunity for us to get coverage and possibly get them here to talk about our destination. Press trips. We've had also a good number of press trips. Probably again, a Visit Florida partnership, but probably the biggest one for us they're all hard work, they're all important, they're all good. But we had a group from Ice Lolly Vacations in the UK who came, and it's a husband-wife couple of influencers, and they just did a bang-up job. They just did a really good job, and I'm going to show you a clip from one of their products. They produced a number of videos, very long ones, but they were fantastic, and we really appreciate them coming. And this is the start of the clip, and I'm very pleased to show you the first panel. It's not going to go as it, is it? One moment, please.
Hi guys, it's Matt Curtin here, and we are currently in Fort Myers in Florida. Now, we thought we'd kick off our trip by coming down to Fort Myers Beach. And this beach has always consistently voted as one of the top 10 beaches in all the United States, and it's absolutely gorgeous out there.
Yeah, it really is. And over the next few days, we'll also be checking out the islands of Captiva and Sanibel, which are beautiful, and showing you guys all there is to do in this lovely region of Florida.
So that's just the first 30 seconds of the clip. It's a 5-minute clip, and it's just fantastic. They covered the area. They got everybody, as many as we mentioned, in there, and just really, really hard work. Much appreciated. Okay, and coming up, we have a number of individual press trips. It's busy season for us, so we're staying on top of that. Probably the single biggest one is during Island Hopper, we are going to have media, international and local, or international and national media on the ground during the entire event, covering different aspects of it. And naturally, that's a huge thing for us, as well as our Shellcast podcast, which is going to be relaunching in October. So look for a feature episode about Island Hopper in the beginning of October. Just finished filming Songs from the Sand, which is going to be shown Thursday, the 18th. So you'll see that coming to social media channels.
Hi, I'm Dan.
And one more product we want to discuss, which is a new innovation from Miriam Dotson that basically it's called Industry Partner Spotlight, as you can see on the screen. And it's a 1-minute video, and it's just talking about industry partners in this area and the destination. And if you're interested in us including you in the lineup, please talk to one of us in communications. We'll be happy to start getting the schedule going. Yeah, play.
Hi, I'm Dan.
And I'm Marie, and we are here in downtown Fort Myers, Yacht Basin, right next to the beautiful Caloosahatchee River, and today we're going to show you the nautical tiki cruises. The tiki boats are just, they are a combination of fun and relaxation. You bring your friends, you bring some beverages, you have fun, it's easy for onboarding and offboarding. We want to see you both in the shade and outside of the shade, and very importantly, we come in the bathroom. And when you go on board, you will see you can take the lead beat on our tiki.
Yes. They want to see the big houses, they want to go see the big boat, they want to go see an island, and we just free run and have fun.
You just pick the location, where they want to go, and from there they pick the time.
I've been in the boating industry all my life. I had a dealership in Missouri for 20 years. We used to come here every year, and every year I came there, and I was getting on a plane going back home. I said, someday, I'm not going back home. And then they finally came. With all the hotels and restaurants and everything that downtown has to offer, this is a great spot.
The more we have to offer here, the better for tourism altogether.
And I'd like to mention Marie Hamilton is actually here with us today from Nautical Tiki Boat Tours. So if you have any questions about that, she'd be happy to answer them for you.
Hi, I'm Dan.
And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
All
Ray.
right, thank you, Ray. I've got you chock full today. I'm going to bring up Joseph now. Give us our second quarter data report. Morning, Joseph.
Morning. Again, I'm Joseph St. Germain. I'm the president of Downs and St. Germain Research. I will give a high-level overview of the April through June visitor. Again, this is based upon over 900 surveys that we complete with your visitors. And again, this is more of the high-level overview. If you want to go into all 140 some odd slides, that's in there too. But for today, we'll just touch on the high-level stuff. We'll start with the economic impact. We saw an increase in visitation despite lower occupancy. Number one, that's due to more units being available, particularly among vacation rentals. We also saw a little bit of a shorter length of stay and a few more day trippers. So that's why that difference is the same. Spending, however, and as I look at this one, I always look at the right column, spending was up nearly 20% year over year. Again, partially due to a little bit over visitors, but also partially due to inflation, things of that nature. Everything costs a little bit more right now. As we shift from this quarter to the year to date, so basically this is January through July, you're seeing some healthy increases in visitation, room nights, direct spending, and economic impact. The one thing that we always like to look at is when Tamara showed TDT year to date was up 31%, that tends to be correlated with overall spending as you go. So that is a nice little metric to kind of double check on things. Tamara showed some of the figures for May and June. This is all of your lodging statistics for April through June. Again, occupancy is down a little bit, just under 9%, but we still see a strong ADR, and RevPAR was up overall year over year. Again, that's for the entire quarter. For pre-visit, we saw a shorter trip planning cycle, not much, but just a little bit shorter. That may also be partially due to the fact that you had more day trippers. Day trippers always have a shorter trip planning cycle. But the one thing I wanted to bring to everyone's attention, since we go back to 2020 to 2021 to 2022, we've seen an increase in the percentage of visitors considering other destinations. That's just something that's not only something we've seen here, but in a lot of Southwest Florida, particularly in beach destinations. In 2020 and 2021, Florida was a little bit ahead of reopening, but now that the whole world's reopening, that also means your visitors' options are reopening. So that is just something that we're going to continue to monitor as we go. The top reasons for visiting, these three tend to be near the top nearly every quarter, but vacations, beaches, and relaxing and unwinding. Promotions this year, nearly half of your visitors recalled promotions, and that means nearly 1/4 of all your visitors were influenced by these promotions to come to the area. The top sources are largely online, whether it be the internet or social media. Transportation, about 2 in 3 flew to the area, and over half fly directly through RSW. But as Tamara showed earlier with the airport, given the unsustainable 2021 demand that's down slightly a little bit. I also think that's probably partially due a little bit to inflation and things of that nature, just made everything more expensive, particularly in April through June. I know we're starting to see prices dip a little bit as we go now. To give you a sense of your profile, we did see 10% of your visitors travel from international markets. Not only is not an increase from last year, but it's also an increase from January through March. So that upward trend of international is going up. It hasn't reached pre-pandemic levels, but it's good to see that up in general. We did see a little bit more visitors traveling as families and with children. It's as we go, that's good to see. The travel party size was about the same as the previous year. I won't read all of these, but this is just to give you an idea of what your typical visitor looks like, your average age, income a little bit over 100K, tend to be married, tend to be college educated, etc. The experience itself, we saw, normally we've seen vacation rentals and hotels be about the same. We saw a few more in vacation rentals in April through June. The one thing, as Jill mentioned, we're starting to see a trend in multi-generational travel, particularly amongst international visitors. One thing that we've noticed in this region of Florida as well, international visitors are slightly more likely to stay in vacation rentals, at least at this point. The average length of stay was about 5.6 nights, but we did see a healthy increase in first-time visitors. 30% were visiting for the first time in 2021, up to 36% this time. That's a 6% change, but that's a big move, frankly. So that is good to see. But you still do have a loyal visitor. About 1 in 5 have visited more than 10 times. Top activities, the beaches, relaxing and dining. Where do they stay? Sanibel and Fort Myers reach towards Sanibel Island and Fort Myers Beach were at the top this time around. That tends to be correlated with the reason they're coming for the beach, the top activities for the beach, but also you have significant percentages staying in Fort Myers and Cape Coral. Again, this doesn't include every municipality, so we have that in the detailed findings. These are just the top communities of where they stayed. And then finally, how did we do? Were they satisfied? Do they want to come back? These metrics were largely the same as last year. 95% are likely to recommend the area, which is great to see. Anytime that's above in the 90s, that's good. 87% are likely to return, which is about the same year over year. And then 59% are actually likely to come back next year, which is actually an increase year over year. So that was good to see. The one area that we did see a little bit of a dip in wasn't satisfaction overall, but the percentage who were very satisfied with their overall visit and very satisfied with customer service. We saw a slight dip in that this quarter. That was also correlated with higher prices at the time, and those are two things that tend to go. The higher the price, the harder it is to reach satisfaction. I see some nodding from some folks who understand that as well, but it's just something that it's kind of those two, as those move, they tend to move with each other. But overall, not bad figures. At the same time, we did have a quarter where we saw it go down, so that's something we'll try to monitor as we move forward. Visitor concerns. Traffic tends to be number one almost all the time, but 1 in 4 said they had no concerns at all, which I mean, I guess we don't take this from Twitter, because if it was Twitter, everyone has a concern about something, but that is good to see, frankly, because we ask them, hey, what concerns do you have, and 1 in 5 say nothing at all. So there are always ways to improve, but it's good to see those figures. And then finally, looking ahead in our occupancy study, we ask our hoteliers, vacation rentals, RV campgrounds to look at reservations in the future. For July through September, not as rosy as 2021. 2021 is the light blue. So if you look at the dark blue, you have about 1/3 say it's up for the next 3 months, 1/3 say it's the same, and 1/3 say it's down for the next 3 months. This is the statistical equivalent of I have no idea. Some say up, some say down, some say the same. So if you're ever wondering what that emoji looks like in statistics, it's that. However, as we look 6 months down the road, or October through December, 4 to 6 months down the road, there is more. We see more than half of folks we talk to, the occupancy looks up. So it's a rosier picture down the road, and with next quarter looking about the same as year over year. So overall, that's a whistle-stop tour through what your visitors tell you for April through June 2020. At the same time, I always like to leave some time here for questions before I pass it along.
Questions?
Of the 900 surveys, how are they administered? Are most of them phone calls based on you somehow find the numbers of the people that were staying with us in the county? And then how much of them would be like in person where you're actually out working a corner somewhere and surveying somebody?
Most all of them are intercept surveys. So we have interviewers with iPads, and we are sampling around the county.
Okay. And we've talked about that before. Do you hit the same spots around the county so that you have like comparative data year to year? So I'm assuming somebody that would answer the question in Captiva would be a lot different than somebody that would answer the question in, let's say, Bonita Springs.
Correct. We have basically some quotas that we shoot for each. As you can imagine, it's not like 102 versus 102, but it's always equitable throughout the county, and that's based upon previous data, and then something that we revisit each year or so to make sure those sampling plans are about the same. Because we want to make sure that you're kind of comparing apples to apples. Because, for example, if we did all 900 in only one area, you'd see these massive differences.
Right. Yeah. Appreciate it. Thank you.
No worries. Yes.
The ADR increase and the drop in occupancy, do you think that's a relationship, or do you think it's just basically because people have more choices now?
From what, and again, I want to make sure this is speculation, but based upon what we've seen across the state, I think it's some of both. I mean, it looked, especially, I think the biggest thing to take away, we keep comparing to 2021, which was a year that we were, if you even stayed at the same levels, that's a massive win, because the universe that was open year over year is totally different. So overall, because we've seen this not only in Southwest Florida in particularly, but throughout the state, we saw a great year in 2021, and then once we got to about March or April, we started to see that occupancy slip, but ADR tending to hold. So I think it's a little bit of both.
And I'll even add that, you know, I think we see May and June slipping, but July, there's an improvement in July. And, you know, maybe some of you can speak to that just based on what we're seeing from the weekly STAR report. So it's an interesting dynamic. I definitely think the vacation rentals are not having as good a summer as they had last year, but I think the hotels have been pretty steady. You know, truthfully, you know, just, you know, facts are facts. There are less planes arriving at the airport, and that means there are less visitors coming to our area. Most of those planes have visitors on them. So at the end of the day, you know, I think that's impacting us as much as anything else. I mean, I know certainly high prices and inflation are affecting some of it, but I think at the end of the day, it truly is air capacity that is probably having the biggest factor on how visitation goes.
Yeah, especially with, you've always had a high percentage of your visitors flying to the area. So I think that's a good point, Tamara.
I think you could see people, I mean, you saw the numbers in May and June where people are pulling back a little bit, occupancy going down, rates staying up. But when you come to July, I think people pulled back, but people watched what the weather was. I mean, this Sahara dust has been a blessing for us with no storms. So, you know, it's really helped July be a big difference to 21.
El Nino, good for us.
Yeah.
Well, I think also too, you see yes, air traffic is impacted because the number of flights that are coming in are down, but you get that offset a lot by drive market because people are still afraid to fly because they don't know if their flights are going to get canceled. You hear horror stories all day long of, my flight got canceled and I got moved out. So if I could fly and take the chance that I may not be able to get back, or if I can fill up my car with gas, and even though it's expensive, it's cheaper still than flying, and get in my car and drive somewhere and know I can get home at the end of my vacation, I think we've seen a lot more drive market. I've been in my hotel, we've just stayed constant throughout. It hasn't stopped at all. And rates are holding incredibly high. And it's a lot of drive market people that have just decided that it's easier to drive somewhere and stay on vacation and be able to get home than try to fly and battle the airports and whether I'm going to get canceled or not on my flights.
Well, and even in Simone's statistics, you saw that the top the hotels they were asking about were all immediate to the airport. That's canceled flights and such. I mean, the flight challenges, and I'm sure all of us have been caught there. I spent an extra night in New York on a trip this summer because I didn't make my connection. I think, those challenges are affecting everybody. And you're right. If you're taking a whole family, maybe you want to do drive instead of fly.
The other thing that, I don't know if you're seeing it too, or Tony, but the travelers, because they're coming, but they're pulling back on where they're spending, like Wave Runner rental, spa, it's pulled back some versus what we saw the first 4 months. So, my 401k just lost $100,000. Oh, honey, you're not going to the spa. So I think that's what we're seeing too. So
that's probably due to the cost of the commodities, and people just have less money to spend because they're spending on other necessities. So when it comes to vacations, it takes a backseat to that. So,
but I think you're seeing though people say we're still going to travel. We know what it's like when we don't do it. We're going to still do it, but maybe we're not going to do the spa or that extra dinner or that Wave Runner tour.
See, we've seen the opposite.
Really?
The incidental spend from them has gone up from where it's been. They're still spending. They're still coming. I don't know. It's the oddball out, but we're seeing the opposite. My spa's never been busier. My restaurants have never been busier.
it's probably just the different groups of people that are traveling. You have one group that's making more money because of the rise in cost of the commodity. You have another group that's paying for that that doesn't have as less money. So probably the level of the cost of the hotel. I mean, you're probably seeing that high I've talked to some other hoteliers in other areas, like in Orlando, Boca Raton, they were saying they're busy as far as the activities on the properties and stuff because of that. So I guess this depends on where you go and who's staying there. It depends on the visitor, you know. Yes.
And when you were talking about less flights, you're talking about less actual airplanes.
Yes,
So the airplanes are full,
yes,
or as full as they were,
yes,
but we have less airplanes coming in, so.
correct. More than 19, but less than 21.
Yeah.
Did I say that correctly? So, you know, I mean, in fairness, what we're seeing, I mean, those are not huge dips, what we shared today, but I think some of that is absolutely being affected. I mean, Ben, average flight, 85% visitors. I mean, you know.
It's important to understand that our load factors are as high as they've ever been, which means
Full plates.
they're full. And I believe that we could get more equipment in there, they'd probably be full as well. But the airlines are struggling right now, and they're managing the amount of equipment they have in the air because they got shortages of pilots and things like that. So.
Are there also smaller planes now compared to say 2-3 years ago?
Yeah. No, the plane sizes are the same. We do see larger aircraft, obviously, in season.
Right.
For example, Delta will bring in their largest aircraft in their fleet in season. But they gauge aircraft down, in the summers.
But if I'm not mistaken, though, when you look at the flight or the passengers that have come through the airport, we're down compared to last year when it was crazy, right? But compared to 19 and any year prior, we're still setting records.
Right.
So it's not that the airport is suffering, we're still doing better than it ever did outside of pre-COVID.
And if you remember, last year, we were, like, in terms of airport recovery and flight, number of flights, exactly. And so some of this is just
That was a roll-off from COVID.
a normal market adjustment. Maybe that's the right way to say it.
And
but-
Throw out last year, we're still beating any record that we've ever had.
Correct.
Yeah, because last year you had the roll-off from COVID, people were stuck at home, they wanted to travel. Then you had other people that were just moving, just exiting the north and moving here when their luggage and bringing their toothbrushes and saying, we're staying here. So we had a lot of one-way flights too. And you see that, they were staying in hotels waiting for their house to be built. We have a lot of those people, literally getting off the plane, going to the first sales center, buying the first house they could find just to get away from up north. So you don't have that now because that's already occurred. The ones that are here now are here, and there's not as many coming from up north for that reason now.
It was the domestic, it was pretty much 100% domestic that we were dealing with in 2021, and now we have the international thing that's coming into play, which has impacted, where travelers' options.
So for those that couldn't hear him, he was saying, last year was 100% domestic, and now, some of those planes are being shifted to the international markets, and of course, we're getting some international air service as well. So, I think we're going to have a hard time to have a year we can compare to. Will 21 be the year we compare to, or will you have to, I don't think so. Will it be 22? Probably not. Probably 23 we'll see things get, a more normal pace on things. But, we're in an interesting time.
Well, I just got, my team's at the STAR conference, and STAR just came out with the projections for 23, 5.7% RevPAR increase over this year. So they're projecting another very good year, so.
All right. Any other questions for Joseph?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joseph.
Okay, great, thank you. Next will be Jeff Milkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Council. Today, we're going to be talking about April, May, and June for our sports tourism efforts. In April, we had a good April, 7,000 hotel rooms filled, 10,000 visitors with a $3.1 million economic impact. Some of the events that we highlighted was a Miss Florida softball event, which was a huge surprise for us with the numbers that it generated. A couple hockey showcases that are down at Hertz Arena. Our volleyball is still growing, but this event was good, almost 1,000 room nights. And it's always great when we have an Olympic national governing body come to town. So USA Swimming brought us their open water national championships, and that was their second year in a row for that. So you can see the bar graph is related to historical, or at least the last 7 or 8 years. So other than 2018, we had a really good April. Moving to May, I will say May was the best May we've ever had. Almost 20,000 hotel room nights filled, $6.4 million economic impact. A lot of that had to do with, we've done a really good job of growing our bowling business, which everybody snickers at when we talk about bringing these bowling tournaments in. But when you can see a 6-week bowling tournament filled 4,600 room nights, you can kind of start to see how serious it is as a tourism product. And we really enjoy one significant bowling event every year from the Florida State Bowling Association. Perfect Game had a huge Memorial Day tournament with us. Basketball Alliance is now in its 3rd year partnership with us, and they awarded us their state championships in May, which was great. And then I don't know how many years now we've hosted. I think this is our 9th year hosting the FHSA baseball state championships at Hammond Stadium, and we have also renewed that event for an additional 3 years. And I will say, Amanda, Island Coast High School did win their class national or state championship, which I believe Amanda has somebody dear to her works at that high school. So, so it's great to have a local team win a state championship. You can see the bar graph, and again, just a great May, and we hope to keep that number up there even when bowling goes away. June, 15,000, almost 16,000 hotel room nights filled, $6.6 million direct visitor spend. First responder games, which is the firefighters from around the state came in. They come in about every 4 years. Was one of our events. Then Perfect Game, as they traditionally do, filled a lot of our fields during that time. 6 events filling 11,000 room nights. And then a great product that's stays a lot at the Hyatt and plays over at Hertz Arena is the All-Ivy Hockey Future Showcase, where it's a hockey showcase, just like Perfect Game is a baseball showcase. They bring individual players in, and they are seen by Ivy League hockey coaches, so pretty unique event. So you can see the June was right there in line with what we typically do. Before we go to questions, we had, if we do the typical about 40,000 room nights in July like we expect to do, May, June, and July is really where we try to pack as much sports tourism into our community as we can. And you add May and June, and if we hit our numbers in July, that's 75,000 hotel room nights in those 3 months that we're filling in that summertime. And that's really where the moments of opportunity are. That's where all the high school and the youth state championships and national championships are happening. And then as you'll see next meeting, when August hits, it's like flipping a switch, and sports tourism just goes away for about a month. So we try to do as much as we can in that 3-month period. And when you do this kind of number, the 75,000 room nights, there are a lot of people that contribute to that success. And, so the thank yous need to go out, especially to our Lee County Parks and Rec Department, who largely manages a lot of these facilities and fills up our complexes and is doing the maintenance day in, day out through all the rainy season. Our Visitor and Convention Bureau, Simone, thank you for the volunteers. They've come out, help us with registration. Even our local emergency management team helps us with providing ambulance services at some of our events. So it really is an all-encompassing team effort. It reaches outside of Lee County government with our sports organizing committee partnership. The Red Sox, the Twins, the Mighty Muscles are working with us. And let me tell you a little bit about how baseball has changed. Major League Baseball now owns minor league. So the system has completely changed. They eliminated an entire level of minor league system, but they didn't decrease the number of players. So where are all of those players going? Instead of having a farm team in another town, they're coming to Fort Myers, and they're working out at JetBlue Park and Hammond Stadium. And so there's twice as many young players on those properties as there have ever been in the summertime. And again, the summertime is when we're really trying to pack as much sports tourism in those facilities. And at some point, we start running into each other with the Red Sox and Twins on their fields. And I got to tell you, they've been amazing partners with us in making sure that the sports tourism efforts are taking a priority at those facilities. And I just want to say thank you to them. Our local bowling center people have just been helpful. Everybody in this community embraces sports tourism. We couldn't say thank you enough to everyone. One final announcement is here coming up in a few weeks, we're going to welcome USA Baseball and Canada's national 18 and under team, USA Baseball and Australia's national 18 and under teams. They're going to train in Lee County for about 2 weeks before they go up and play in the World Championships. And so to have two world qualifying teams call Lee County their training home is pretty cool, and we're really excited about that. So that's my report, and if anybody's got any questions.
Any question for Jeff? Thanks, Jeff, for the great news and the great update. Okay, move on to the new business. We have the station strategic plan. Tina?
So TDC members, you'll remember, shared with you last month the draft of the strategic plan. Had some feedback from some of the stakeholders that participated in that project. Clarity of place, Tina is here to present on behalf of us the effort that we went through to create this plan, but there were no big changes based on that feedback, just some what I call Scribner's changes. And today we are going to have her share with you the process, but also we are asking for your a motion to accept the strategic plan as presented. So Tina, let you take it over.
How we decided to build the destination strategic plan and work with Tam and her team, and then gives you some highlights of some of the recommendations. When we started the planning process, and as you heard from the great reports from the different staff members and the different department heads, we knew that we were coming into a destination that had a solid foundation. If anything we can say about the VCB is that they really know how to leverage and use the tourism vertical to create benefit for their community. From the work that Jeff has done in sports, from the reports that Jill had given you about the sales efforts, from the communications with Ray, from working with the visitors and making sure that our guests feel welcome when they get here. The VCB has shown that they know how to leverage the tourism economy to bring up those expenditures that Joseph reported on, and be a good steward of them. So taking all of the resources and the revenues that come from the tourism economy and expending them back into their program, looking at different initiatives and ways to keep this virtuous cycle of the visitor economy going. We also knew, and as we were digging into the project, recognized that the VCB is moving into that other M of destination organizations, not only working on the great marketing to get the visitors here, but looking at the ways that they can have an impact beyond just the tourism vertical and have an impact on the community. So being a good steward of the resources and making sure that their impacts go beyond and support the county's efforts to get ready for that millionth resident coming here. So knowing that we were starting from a position of strength, our approach to building the destination strategic plan worked around seeing where the destination is at the time, kind of marrying that with what we're seeing in the industry and what we know that the visitor industry, the tourism and hospitality industry is facing as we get to that new normal after the pandemic. We looked wanted to make sure that we didn't reinvent the wheel. So spent a lot of time looking at the great research that has already been done, looking at all of the great past data that Joseph has shared with us of why visitors come here and what they do when they get here. Looking at some of those insights that were built through the marketing and the new brand approach, that feeling and that emotion that draws visitors here. But then we also wanted to spend a lot of time with the staff, perhaps much to their chagrin, but knowing that Tam and her team are the experts. You know, we know destinations and we know what works, but they know Lee County. And so didn't want to build a strategic plan without tapping into their insights and tapping into their knowledge of how this destination works together. The last important element that I wanted to point out is just our time that we took to understand the stakeholders and the industry partners' perspectives. Over the course of the engagement, we had the opportunity to visit you several times and meet one-on-one with your stakeholders or in small groups. What we wanted to do is to kind of ground truth some of the data that we had pulled together, really understand what makes this community and what makes this destination special, but then also what do those industry partners and stakeholders want out of the destination? Because at the end of the day, while we attract visitors to come here to raise revenues and to build economic activity, at the end of the day, it's about building the quality of place of the community and how the visitor economy supports that. So wanted to make sure that we heard what your stakeholders and industry partners are saying and take that into account as we build the strategic plan. So what we found in the strategic plan, as you've seen in it, probably didn't surprise you. The differentiator for Lee County is the beautiful assets that it has, the beaches, the outdoor recreation, the water resources. That coupled with some great visitor services. Time and time again, that emotion, that point that stuck out as we were looking at what makes this destination special is that feeling that you get when you get here. Feeling because of the surrounding, but also the insights and the care that is given to the visitor, from thinking through what do you do for airplane passengers who are stuck in a customs area that's that's understaffed, to just those little touches that everyone notices, and as Simone mentions, they remember when they're here. We looked at the challenges and saw that those were mostly around that management part of things. How can the VCB, through its efforts, through its direct efforts, but also through asking for support and working with its industry partners, better integrate and connect the whole county as a destination, working on connecting the beaches with the inland communities, and then also looking ahead and seeing some of those, once we get to that new normal, what are some of those industry challenges that they can support and help with so that we can make the visitor economy as strong as it can be. So from these, looking at the strengths and the challenges, we identified 3 strategic opportunities for the VCB to lead its efforts going forward in the next 5 years. Looking at leveraging that hospitality infrastructure and integrating all of what the county has to offer, activating the brand and making sure that it's not only felt externally from your visitors, but really integrated in with the industry partners and how the destination presents itself, and managing the destination. So in short, building upon the strong foundation to differentiate the destination and integrate it so that the visitor economy and the work of the VCB does continues to contribute to strengthen the county, not only for visitors, but also for residents. And so from those opportunities, we came up with 3 strategic directions. The first one is looking at optimizing the impact of the visitor economy. So continuing to do all the great things that the staff does to build up that business activity and create revenue and activity because of the visitor economy, but also looking inward and seeing ways that we can spread the impact throughout the county and then also integrate it and continue to integrate it with our industry partners and what our stakeholders and other sectors of the economy want. The second revolves around place, taking not so much more ownership because the VCB is already doing this, but being more proactive, intentional about touting the VCB's expertise in what makes a great place. We know from all of the visitor research, from dealing with the visitors, we know what drives individuals to come to stay here for short periods of time. Much of that knowledge then transfers over to what makes people want to live here and stay here. And so having a voice in those conversations around what makes Lee County a great place to visit, live, and stay. And then lastly, we called it destination adaptability, but this is our way of saying make sure that the VCB has the resources, the structure, and the skill sets to be successful in continuing to do the great destination marketing work, but then moving into more intentionally into that destination management field. So gave them some ideas of how to make sure that they are positioned for success. Lastly, to complement those strategies, what we didn't want to do is leave Tam and her team with a nice, pretty report and say good luck, but did some work, again, with the department directors to try to lay out some templates, some worksheets, some ways to track how they're implementing the strategies and how they're tracking the success of them. So that was a quick nutshell of the Destination Strategic Plan. I don't know if we have any time, but would be pleased to answer any questions you might have.
Any comments or questions? Go ahead.
Any questions for Tina? If you do, that's great, but if you don't, I would love for you to approve the plan as we've presented it to you.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
To approve it.
We have a motion by Tony and a second. Was that by Pam? Okay, second by Pam. Any other discussion? Any public comment on this item? I'll come back to the board. Any objection? No objection. Motion carries. Thank you. Next will be third quarter fiscal year 22 budgets and 23 proposed budget.
In light of time, and I know we're running a little long today, apologies, but this is what happens when we don't have a July meeting and we don't have a September meeting. We have a very full August agenda. I'll start with the proposed 23 budget. I provided this to you a little over a week ago. I think I sent it out to you, but we have a proposed budget report that we would like for you to support. Obviously, that proposed budget will go to the Board of County Commissioners. It's had the review of county administration and will be going to the board as part of their budget process with 2 public hearings in September. For the VCB operating budget, we're looking at $23.8 million. That's about an 11% increase. And for the beach and shoreline budget, it's a bigger increase. It's about a 40% increase, but there's a new position in there, or 75% of a position. In terms of the sports development budget, I don't want to speak for Jeff, but I think it's about 4% increase. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I haven't heard from any of you about it, but perhaps you have some questions. In terms of the VCB operating budget, the biggest portion of the increase is a $1.5 million additional allocation to marketing and some allocation in our promotions budget. And of course, a couple of positions that we're adding, two positions within the operating budget, a portion of that coordinator handling the beach and shoreline program and assisting with product development as well. So, Rob?
To fund that and keep advertising and all the other things the same, what did you base the, is that to match like 2019 levels of bed tax collections, like base the bottom line on
not based on budget, on bed tax collection, but based on operations more so in terms of, what we felt we could accomplish in the year ahead. And that's how we landed on those things. Obviously we're knee deep in media planning. We just rolled out the co-op. We've identified most of the media placements that we hope to make for this year. We'll officially roll all of that out to you at our meeting in November, but we have a very solid plan for the marketing for the year ahead, and show attendance, et cetera. So it's a combination of what can we accomplish in the year ahead, and what do we have the resources to accomplish.
Tam, where are we with personnel right now within the Bureau? Are we short by?
We're lean, mean operating machine, and we haven't added any positions in a while. And, as that budget grows, then that means there's more responsibility on each one of those individuals. So we're really talking about adding 2 full-time positions as part of this proposed budget, a full-time marketing manager, a full-time product development coordinator would assist with the 3 funding programs, but also product development as a whole, and then a part-time intern that will help our fiscal team. Bigger budget, more expenditures, more to do. So, you know, our team is currently 33 people, so this would take us to 35 full-time positions and that 1 additional intern position, so.
But the other 33 are fully staffed though right now.
Correct, well, you know.
You have 1 or 2.
Right, we have a few I mean, I think by the time we get to, I won't say fully staffed because you know what happens the minute you say it, then you're not, but pretty close.
Rob, did you?
Yeah, I know the Visitor and Convention Bureau has always been an excellent steward over the funding that the hotel partners have provided. So I'd make the motion to pass the budget as planned.
I'd second it.
We have a motion and a second. And any public comment on this item? Come back to the council. Any other discussion? Any objections? No objection, motion carries. Thank you. Next,
All right.
we have the formalization of the events marketing funding.
Real quick, where does that put the reserves?
Reserve number continues to grow, as outlined in the proposed budget report that we presented to you. Current reserve estimate at the end of the fiscal year, the proposed, based on the proposed budget, would be 60.9 million. So here. I know. We're finishing this one first. All right.
Okay.
Before we move on, we also have presented to you the 3rd quarter budget reports. They're pretty much right on track. VCB budget's at 71%. The operating budget for beach and shoreline, the capital planning budget is at 71, I believe. And Jeff, I think you're at 65%. Pretty much on track for 2/3 of the year. Excuse me, 3/4 of the year. And if you will make a motion to accept that, we would be appreciative.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Second that.
A motion and a second. Any public comment? Any objection? No objection, motion carries. Thank you.
All right, last but not least, Ryan, can you present on behalf of Nancy McPhee?
Sure will. Good morning, Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Desjardins, members of council, Brian Ossowski, Director of Marketing, standing in for Nancy McPhee, who could not be with us this morning. So I have 2 orders of new business. First up is approval of events marketing funding for fiscal year 23. The events marketing program funding proposed for next fiscal year at that time was $200,000. The subcommittee review workshop took place on June 9th, and the subcommittee reviewed 9 funding requests totaling $174,175. The subcommittee recommends funding of $156,400 as indicated. And I can answer any questions, but at this time we're looking for an approval of a motion to accept the events marketing funding as discussed by the subcommittee.
Robert has a question.
Might have been in the packet, but the 2 that you opted out of for whatever reason, did they withdraw or did we have some reason? Is there any light you could shed on?
The 2 there shown were submitted by Captivaville. They did not successfully get their 501c3 status in time for this, so they were determined to be ineligible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd make the motion.
We have a motion, Robert.
I'll second.
We have a second. Any public comment? Come back to council. Any other discussion? Any objection? No objection, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Second order of new business is approval of attractions marketing funding. The attractions funding review workshop was held on August 1st. The TDC Marketing Subcommittee reviewed 32 requests totaling $580,350. At the workshop, the subcommittee made funding recommendations based on 2 different budget models. Right now, this program has a $450,000 budget amount. We've proposed an increase to $600,000, but today we're looking for approval of both budget models for the attractions marketing program. And again, I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions or motions? Pam?
Do you want to do the motion first, or?
Go right ahead.
First of all, apologize for not being here, but I'm not really sorry. I was in the Baltic. Last minute trip. At any rate, not to parachute in after the committee because I know how much work these are. I just have a concern about the Edison Ford funding, and I think perhaps some of the issue may be the history of that, and I think that possibly Fran and maybe Tony, I'm not sure, are the only two that were ever a part of that full TDC funding program when we first decided to allocate that money to the Edison Home and also to the Convention Council, which obviously is moot now. But at any rate, we as a unit had decided that that funding would be $50,000, excuse me, because they are a driver, you know, a huge driver. We see, you know, in the research that they actually bring people to Lee County and not just, like me, take people once they're here. At any rate, I am an advocate of change. I understand if that's, you know, something that we decide we want to do, but historically we have funded that, and I do have a little bit of a concern with organizations. You know, they plan these things, you know, your budgets and so forth, years in advance, and I just kind of feel like this was a last minute kind of hit to them, and I just would like to hear other opinions on that.
Sure, I'll go first and then I'll let Tony jump in and Jay, since we all were in the subcommittee meetings. The one thing we struggled with was the guidelines, because when you take the guidelines, Edison Ford Estates is separate than the guidelines. So holding everybody accountable to the guidelines, I think the guidelines should change if we want to give more funds to Edison Ford Estates, but the guidelines clearly state that it's max of 20,000. So we took approach to at least kind of, if we're not going to change the guidelines, to start weaning them down to the 20,000. So that's why we recommended the 30,000, and then if we don't change the guidelines, the next year would be the 20,000 to give them plenty of advance notice that their budget is going to get affected. So I think the question that we have is, do we change the guidelines? Otherwise, we're kind of doing a one-off for them versus why don't we do it for someone else?
Yeah.
And I get that the amount of business they bring and everything, I understand that. It's just the guidelines was where we struggled with.
We did struggle. We were on the fence with this for a while, and the idea too of precedent. And I think that's what kind of, you know, if we're going to have a, you know, we talked about people with applications that if you don't fill in the application or meet certain deadlines, you don't qualify. And so it wasn't a one and done. It was a good discussion that we had, and afterwards we kind of agreed that the best way to do it was to, as Bill recommended, let's change the guidelines, but in the meantime, let's not penalize them to the full amount because they were anticipating. But let's say the budget was a lot less, you know, would we have knocked them down anyways? And so I think we kind of hit some middle ground there. Would you agree, Jay? You were in on it quite a bit. So.
It was a good discussion talking about what the expectation was from an applicant if they follow the guidelines or don't follow the guidelines. And my concern with Edison Ford Estate, as I mentioned during the meeting, was how much of their marketing budget are we taking out? And I got a little better answer on that they have an additional, their advertising dollars that they showed us did not include the TDC money in their budget. It shows as other. So I felt a little more comfortable, but I don't like knocking the budget in half.
I had the same concern that Pam has. I really do. It's really a big cut. Is there another?
The only other thing that I'd like to say about that is that, you know, the concern is that they were never subject to the guidelines. You know, I mean, except for, you know, it's been, what, 18 years?
No.
Yeah. And so, you know, all of a sudden just to blast this and not give them any heads up, like gosh, you put your application in, and we've always funded you to this level, we've always done this, and so the expectation is there, but now all of a sudden, 6 months later, after the application was due, we're saying, oops, no, you have.
Kind of getting the rug pulled out from underneath you without, I do understand that, and whether, if we have the funds, do we want to go against the recommendations that we did and say, next year, boys and girls, or do we may have, if the secondary budget is approved, we would have some more money to give them. I don't know if we should bend the full amount going back to 50, but maybe, maybe there's some wiggle room there, to be considered. For what it's worth.
With the 600,000 budget, the recommendation total, as you can see there, is 539,715. So under that model, there certainly is some room.
Yeah, and the question is, how do we feel about it? I think you make a good point. If you're going into something and you've always done it and you've always, and then all of a sudden I am going to be subject to the rules, but where are we on this? It's on the fence, and I think it's time to, I think Bill's suggestion is spot on, that in the future, we need to certainly clarify it, and whether, and when Fran and you guys are saying, why penalize them because they didn't know it was coming. So it makes a point.
And that was the reason why we did the compromise of the 30,000 to start bringing it down. But if changing the guidelines is one thing, but it's how do you set the guidelines that if you get Ding Darling and Crow that are at maximum amounts, why shouldn't they be getting $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000? But it's that's why we have the guidelines, and I think we need to clear those up if we're going to try to do one-offs. And I just personally, I hate doing one-offs that are outside the guideline. I'd rather have the guidelines clear.
And in fairness, that just for the history, and let's be true to where that history was. This was a standoff, and I think we collectively, the TDC said, we'd really like them to follow all the same parameters that we follow for all the other attractions. So we sort of said, we want to see your application look just like theirs. We want to see your report look just like the same criteria we're getting from them. But I think that component of, are they going to be held to that limit, that wasn't made clear to them. And I'm trying to be fair. I know where you're coming from. Let's treat everybody the same, and I agree. And perhaps, as a board, you want to set some additional criteria. Maybe it's a gate count. As long as you have a certain gate count, then you're going to be held to this limit. But maybe you have a higher limit potentially for a higher gate count. I mean, I'm guessing Ding Darling and Edison Ford Winter Estates are going to have a much higher gate count than some of these other attractions. And so you may want to look at them a little bit differently, but those are some things we can work on for the next cycle, for sure. And we'll work with you to, the subcommittee can then vote on those and bring those changes back to the TDC. So
I think the workshop, you put a committee together, and the committee comes up with a program, and may not be, you're never going to get 100% consensus, we know that. So I would suggest, and I think this has been a great discussion here, and like anything, it's a voice, and I think we hear it, and I think your point's good, but I think, to support the committee and what the committee has done and come up with a recommendation, I think we need to support the committee's decision.
And I have a question just on procedure. What would it take to change the guidelines? Is that a staff decision or is that a committee decision?
Committee decision, yeah.
So for going forward, if we were to look at that and change what the criteria is, how do we make that happen? Do we need to meet as a subcommittee again?
Yeah, staff can put some ideas together, and then we'll have you meet if that's what you want to do, then you'll meet as a subcommittee, bring those changes for the program back to the the full board and vote on it. I mean, it's your program. I mean, we're managing it for you, but
Well, certainly these caps are coming from a time when the cap would buy you a lot more than it buys you today. So I think it's probably time to have that
right.
Meeting and potentially move up some of this. You know, I don't know, I don't like mid-cycle requests, so I don't think that affects what's on the table today, but it might for future years.
And I agree. I mean, not saying that we not approve this and change the guidelines. I think the guidelines need to change moving forward, that we review them and just make sure we're there. That way we can work within the guidelines. Agreeing with Bill, you don't like the one officer. Well, the guidelines are there for everyone but us. And that makes it difficult to have guidelines, because then what's the point?
Yeah.
And in fairness, I understand, we didn't give them a warning ahead of time that say, okay, your exception is no longer an exception. And that does hurt their planning. We've all had ups and downs and things like that. So, I mean, they're a strong enough organization, as you pointed out, Jay, there's more money in their budget. It doesn't mean that we like doing this, but I think it's a step that the committee decided that that's what they would do. And so I'd like to do that. I think some of the things I've heard about going forward with recommendations, I really like to hear. I think gate count for certain things could go higher. And I think that's a great tool to use.
Well, and again, by expanding the dollars available through that program, that gives you you know what I mean? You have some different ways you can look at it. Before, I mean, you've always been very constrained here, right? With the previous allocation, yeah, you almost had to cap it because there was no way to do it without capping it. So I think we got a good plan. It's just, how do you want to handle this issue? So
that's something staff can work with in the future, Jay, as far as changing that. But today, right now, we have to vote on this, accept the marketing budget. I can entertain a motion for this.
Is it my understanding that you decided between 20 and 30, or you just decided that?
But yeah, the right-hand column, the far right-hand, was based on if the budget is approved by the commissioners at 600,000. So we allocated additional funds based on to what some of the organizations asked for. But when it comes to Ford Winter Estates, the thought was that we would do 30,000 in anticipation that to start still above the 20 and start kind of weaning them off if the guidelines don't change.
And if I remember correctly, and Pam, you have the book, last year they got 40,000. So it was a 10,000, it was a 10,000.
Just a gradual decline.
That process started talking a year ago.
Well, we just didn't have the money.
Right, okay.
So everybody had to get clipped.
Yeah.
We did clip them at that point. We said, okay, you can't have all that you did have. So we did push them to 40 last year, I do recall.
So make a motion, or either.
So are we making a motion based
accept or
on the
deny?
600, or are we making a motion based on the?
Both.
I think you should say, we accept the committee's however you want to do this, we accept the committee's recommendation, and the allocation will be based on the final budget approved.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
We have a second. Any public comment? Come back to the board for any other discussion. Any objections to their motion? No objection. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
But we are going to look at the guidelines then?
Yes.
So, okay.
Yes.
Absolutely. Staff will work with you on that.
Okay.
So I have a question, Tam. So the balance difference between the actual budget when it's done, is there some leeway there, up to 600,000? Could that be adjusted then for any of the applicants that request more money for that extra $60,000?
Well, what we have historically done is given the VCB some leeway to help with some new event that comes to town. It gives us a little bit of room for something that pops up, and we use that in our product development efforts. So, I mean, you're not leaving a lot of money on the table there. To be clear, $60,000. It'd be hard to spread $60,000, $250 across them. So we've just used those dollars internally to help market other attractions or events as opportunities came up.
Just thinking outside the box, if they can afford later, so our gate counts are this, and here's our information for our guidelines. I just wonder if that's something they could get more funding for that or not.
I like that gate count.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
One of the things that we did, like early on when there was money left over in events, is that we have always commented that the best expenditures of the dollars really come from the VCB. They really market it well, and we also encourage all of the events to use some of the resources, which they're always happy to do. And so, and then also, that's what started Songwriters, actually, I think, and look how successful that's been. So that's why we were really happy to have those extra dollars.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, let's go around the table. Tony, do you have anything for us today?
Oh,
You done? Phil?
Great meeting. If anybody has time next week, FRLA is having their Operation Summit meeting over at the Seminole Hard Rock Casino. It's a great event for if you have up-and-coming managers. It's great education, so highly recommend it.
Thank you. Councilman, anything for us?
No report.
Everything good, Mr.? Good. Brian, do you have anything?
This one's a little further out, but since we won't be having a meeting, the culinary cook-off for FRLA is going to be October 13th at the Gardens in Shangri-La Springs. It's from 5:30 to 8 p.m. It's going to be local chefs that are going to be paired with Lee and Collier high school students to compete to prepare the best tapas, and the monies raised will be used to help the schools. So please come out and support them. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew, anything from the county attorney's office? Everything good? Good. Roger, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
You have some information for us?
Yesterday, Florida Atlantic University released a study to the media about water quality in the Caloosahatchee. And it's important to know, first of all, I don't know why they chose to do that yesterday, since that was a study that we commissioned in 2017, 2018. And those results have been known for a long time, and there's a plan in place to begin to correct what they have reported. What they said was there is raw sewage in the Caloosahatchee, and it's a result of old septic tanks on the north shore of the river. And those very old septic tanks are about 70 years old. At certain times of the year, the water table overtops those tanks, and so raw sewage makes its way into the soil and leaches into the river. We have been working on a countywide wastewater master plan for a while now. It'll be ready, I think, probably December-ish timeframe. And in there will be should be some recommendations on how to proceed with septic to sewer conversion projects around Lee County. There are about 100,000 septic tanks in Lee County. Not everywhere in Lee County is it appropriate to have central sewer. There are some places where it's perfectly acceptable and reasonable to have septic, but I don't know why FAU did that yesterday. I'm going to call today and see if they can help me better understand why they did it, because it was of no particular value unless they were just attempting to stir the pot.
Fundraising.
Yeah, fundraising, right. But what's important for you all to know is that the county commission, all of us, take this issue of water quality as seriously as anyone else. And there are projects that are approved by the board every year in conjunction with all of the partners that are involved, the state and the federal government and Water Management District and, DEP and lots of others. So if you saw that report last night, it was there was sort of a footnote that it was from a 2017, 2018 study by FAU, and but otherwise, don't go in the water because it's really bad kind of story, and it was a little disconcerting.
And yeah, so it's been a couple years out there, but now it's coming out, and you'll see people trying to use that effort to fundraise. Do they still never approach all the houses along the river that has raw sewage still going to the river, right? Because we have septic issues, but a lot of people don't realize, and some of the old timers here probably know, there's still homes along the river that still has raw sewage going directly into the river. There's no lift stations, so their sewer lines go from their house to the river. I know downtown off of Rhode Island, Providence, and Michigan Avenue, a lot of those homes still have 4-inch clay pipes. We've got the Billy's Creek. So you see high fecal matter, bacteria, human waste and Billy's Creek, and then the city's water plant treatment off of Riley Street behind Wink TV there, which nobody could get to because they can't use a drone because of the water treatment there. We can't go there. Calusa Waterkeeper still refused to actually test water there because it's where the city dumps the treated sewage. So, and actually raw sewage is not Billy's Creek there. But for some reason, nobody ever talks about the houses along the river that still has the straight pipes out the river because they don't want to hook up the city sewer. So everything they flush or go down the drain goes straight to the river. So if you know anybody does boat docks and stuff, they'll tell you they know from working on those houses along the river that if you see that 4-inch pipe coming on the seawall, that's just raw sewage, they stay away from that. They net around it when they do drywall, seawalls, and they do docks and stuff, but otherwise that's just a huge contributor because it's not just leaking through 100 yards of soil, it's actually just directly input into the river though. So. Thank you. Anything else from Roger?
No, sir, thank you.
Tamara, do you have anything for us?
Yes, sir.
Jeff? Fran, everything good at the beach? I went down by your place the other day. The place is booming. Everything's busy, and the park was full. You know, it looked great though. Yeah. Jay, anything?
Nothing today, thank you.
Pam? Oh, everybody's happy. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.